Hey there, folks. So, last episode we finished off getting things set up with the melee weapon item, which is the data class that we're going to be using for all of that. And then we started work on what is going to be the actual item that is physically placed in the character's hand. So from that, we went through, we created our basic setup here where we have our skeletal mesh component and our static mesh component. One thing I did realize between is we do need that U property. So I'm going to grab this here. Just because it is a U property, we're going to make some tweaks to it. Visible anywhere. And we're going to copy this and move that over. And the reason being for this is I want to be able to, like, through the outliner, I want to be able to look at the details of a character and see the item and make sure all that information that's on there is correct. So now, ended off saying, well, we do have some of the logic we need to actually assign the item here. We don't have everything. So the first thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to actually work on the skeletal mesh side of this. So skeletal item, set skeletal, if this wants to move, actually work. Set skeletal mesh, item to use, get character mesh. And what that'll do is that'll assign the skeletal mesh from the item information to the one that's within this world actor. So now, for the static mesh, we don't have a function for that. So what we're going to do is we are going to, it's in our weapon item base, we're going to add a very basic function here. Actually, I'm going to make this U function blueprint callable just in case, because as I've mentioned in the past, you want to try and make things exposed to blueprints where it makes sense, simply because you may have someone who's not a programmer who needs to access some of the stuff within blueprints. And I realized I missed blueprint callable on these guys here. So as I was saying, that we want to add in a function to, actually these need to be public as well, because they need to be exposed to that object we just created. So this is going to be static mesh pointer get character mesh. No, because that's going to override get static character mesh. Const return, and what did we call this? Weapon mesh. I believe I have to make some tweaks to this so it's actually exposed correctly within blueprints. I think it's T subclass of, thinking about it. But anyway, so now that we've got that, what we're going to do here is a static item, set static mesh, item to use, get static character mesh. And helps if I could spell mesh. Alright, so that's some basics there. Now there's obviously going to be a few other things we need to do. What I want to do, though, is first and foremost is, as I just said, I need to make sure I actually have these right. If we look at our equipable item, that's the source, not the header. Nope, it was just that. That was what we needed. Okay, so get rid of that. So with this, we do have the basic setup for a weapon item. We have the utter basics for our melee item. And we've started work on the character item. Well, there's a couple other things we're going to want to do. We are going to want to add in, actually we set this to not tick, so we don't need our tick function declared. We can get rid of that to save on milliseconds or nanoseconds, potentially, of compilation time. But we're going to also want a couple other functions in here, which are going to be f transform. Do we want to pass a reference? Yeah, I'm going to pass a reference. Get item, excuse me, offset, const. This is going to be return. Actually, no, I'm going to do this in the header, the source file. This is going to be a U function, blueprint callable, blueprint pure, because we're not going to be changing anything. Blueprint pure. And then we also are going to, before we can finish this function off, excuse me, we're going to need to add that to our weapon item to be able to pass over or pass through our offset information. So again, this one we don't need to expose to blueprint because we have this other function where we need it. So no, just for sanity's sake, we can expose it to blueprints. It's not an issue. So f transform reference get mesh offset const, and this one we're going to put in the header return mesh offsets. Modifiers dropped in binding reference of type L. Yeah, so we can't pass that through as a reference because const reference. Yeah, I dislike that, but oh well, it is what it is. So, okay, so we're going to create the definition here, and all this is going to be is oh, we don't actually store this information anywhere. I just realized that. So grab these. Item data. Let's call it that. So up here, and that's actually going to save, make some changes to this. So item data equals item to use. And we're going to change some of these out. So instead of item to use within all of these, we're going to use our local variable. And then in our get item offset, we're just going to return that item data get mesh offset. Now, there is a potential for this to be invalid or a null pointer. So there's a couple of things we're going to need to account for with that. And that's going to be actually up here. If is valid item to use, return. We do not want to execute anything in here. And here, let's go return is valid item data. F transform. Yeah, so that'll just pass through generic transform. All right, so with that, the little case, protection case we've got here is we basically say if it's not valid, we're not going to execute any of this because obviously, well, we can't sign an invalid and we can't use the information off an invalid item. So let's try build, and then we're going to hop in the editor and see if we can actually make a blueprint of this because honestly, I've mentioned in the past, I've not actually made it this far with any of my projects before. So this might not actually work, and I may have just wasted a couple of episodes. But that's actually, again, for anyone who's new to the series, just jumping in, that's actually part of what I'm trying to do with this series. Is I'm wanting to not just document the success, where, oh, this worked, this is how you want to do it. I want to document the problems, the things that didn't work, and just like general programming and stuff along the way, because I've watched so many tutorials online, be it YouTube or other platforms. Well, got a build error. Oh, it's because this is unknown. Let's try that again. Anyways, I've been watched so many videos and tutorials, and it's always just a case of this is what to do. Alright, so we're back in the editor. Let's see if we can actually set up that base template for the blueprint that we need to spawn. Now equipped item base, select that. Dev equipped item. It's equipped character item, I understand that, but no. Yeah, because I went equipable item. Equipped character. Okay. Get rid of that one. We don't need it. That's the one we want. DF equipped character item base. Okay, let's try that. Use my naming convention correctly. Dev underscore BP underscore. Let's open that up and see if things are working. Okay, so it does look like it is. Starting with tick enabled. Am I missing something there? Or missing something there, I should say. Get over tick. Primary actor tick enabled. Start with tick enabled. Okay, that's the other one. I'm pretty sure everyone just looked at that. Let's go to the declaration. Again, that is always on, so well, I can understand why Epic would want to do that. But at the same time, yeah, not a fan of tick always being enabled. But either way, so we'll go back into the editor for now and just take a quick look. What did we set up in here? We should have skeletal, static, and item data, but there's going to be nothing created for that. These two, because what's happening there, excuse me, is this one is being used for the constructor, not this one. So, because of that, static item and skeletal item shouldn't exist. And you can see they don't exist. And if we go static, yeah, skell, yeah, so they're not there. So the other thing I want to do, and this is just for the purpose of the debugging, is I'm just going to copy both of these create into our generic constructor, because I want to be able to see those items here in the details panel for the item. So save this, close out of this, and I'm actually going to close out of the editor this time. So now that we've got that, though, we are going to go through and I'm trying to think. There's going to be a collision overlap that we need. So what we're going to want to create one of those. So let us grab that basic stuff from, we'll do it from the player character because it's the last place we used it. Not randomized base, and I also need the header file, not the source. So we have the collision overlap for, where is it? There you go. What am I wanting to say here? My brain is not functioning. The collision overlap for, say, a melee weapon. So we're going to add that in. So we're going to go to our header class. This is going to be is it protector or private? Oh, it's public. So we're going to throw that into our public section then. And we're going to obviously need to rename it because it's not interaction trigger overlap. On melee collision overlap begins. We don't need an overlap ends because when you hit something, we only worry about the first initial impact. I'm not going to be worried. Well, you could be with your own setup, but for my case with my project, I'm not going to be worried about like the side effects of after I've stopped hitting them. Yes, it could be, and actually it's something literally just popped into my head, and I'm going to make a note of this. But you could have something like, how long were you in contact? So a difference of a glancing blow versus like a full serious connect. So that's actually something I may think about over the course of the next little while. And if that's the case, we'll add in an end overlap. But we're just going to quickly create the definition for that. And then what it's going to be is we want to include our TF character in here. Actually, I'm going to TF character. There it is. Sorry, brain is just not wanting to function today. I'm gonna grab that. We're gonna include that in our headers, and we're gonna go ATF character pointer, like we've done before, as TF character equals cast ATF character other actor, and then actually it's if that is successful, and what is it, overlap, is that the one we want? Actually, let's take a quick look here. U primitive component, other component, sorry, other comp. And this is where let me just hop back to our character class for a second here. Actually, no, because that's actually core character. Excuse me. That is why we're using the capsule component for all of the characters. And I had mentioned earlier in the series, it was a question on a video, but it was a comment asking about locational damage. Now, again, that is something I intend to add, but that is something that you add in after the fact, because you need to determine what locations you're going to have, be it leg, torso, arm, head, like those four, technically six, left leg, right leg, but those four distinct areas, or are you going to expand that further? And then you need to have the respective collision objects for those so you can tell what they are. I believe, let me look at the heat source a second. Yeah. And yes, we do need to add that in there. So, what are they under? Engine component. Sphere component. So All right. Sorry. Yeah, we have to do that outside. So we're going to change this to a dual if statement. Instead of trying to be fancy with 2 and 1, if the other components is a capsule component, and excuse me, if we can cast it to a TF character. And just for explanation, actually, because I realize this is a bit of a weird one. What we had here, we were getting an error message, and that error is a value of type bool cannot be used to initialize an entity or type of character. And the reason for this is this itself is not a Boolean expression, but the reason why this works, we're including it on its own. It would be the same as, and I don't think this is even going to work, if it is valid. It's effectively like that. It's saying as long as this cast succeeds and this as TF character is not a null pointer, then we're going to say this is a good single Boolean. But we cannot combine these with another one because, I don't know. But it's the best explanation I can think of. So, well, it's pretty simple with this. It's going to be as TF character, take damage. We added that functionality in. So, well, what are we going to be adding there? So this is going to be our item data. Well, we don't have a functionality for that. So we need to go back to our weapon item base and take a look. We've got base damage. Well, we don't have any functionality for that. So we need to add in, we're going to grab another one there. We're going to add a virtual, thank you for being able to spell, float get weapon damage const. And the reason for this being a virtual is we are going to be overriding that in our melee weapon and our our ranged weapons, and it's going to be based off of the damage, things like that. Return, and in this case is base damage. And with our melee weapon, just to start with, it's going to be a float. I've already forgotten what I called that. Get weapon damage. And I can't even spell damage, apparently. Float get weapon damage const override. Wait for that to go through there. And this is where the strength modifier was coming in. So this is where, for now, base damage times strength modifier. And then I'm just going to add in a to-do note. To-do. I know we just cleaned this up, but the whole purpose of this is so future me can find these things we need to address. So just add in a note, call function to calculate strength modifier value, I should say. Alright, so now we've got that. Well, we've got this get weapon damage that's on the U item, U melee item base, but let me close out of these. I keep going into ones I don't need to right now. Our equipable item, it's just a weapon item base, and that's, again, for anyone who understands, I apologize. I'm also trying to help teach some C++ in this process. So the way this works is our weapon item base, I'm actually going to save everything here, has this function, get weapon damage. It's a public function, so in here, well, actually, sorry, in this code, it knows that that function's present. What we've done with our melee item base by saying it's an override is if we are, like, if this get weapon damage call from weapon item base is called, use our function instead. Use this one. That's why it needs to be, actually, should be public. I forgot to add that in there. Good thing I was explaining because I was creating some bad code there. It needs to have the same declaration and everything needs to be the same. And in our weapon item base, it's a public function. This U function information is carried over, and then we'll call this function instead. So get weapon damage. All right, well, we need to have a damage event, a controller, and a damage causer. So how did I do that in NPC? That was with a byte, I believe. Or did we not create a dedicated function for that? Or is it just overriding the one that was already there? Take damage? Yeah, we just override the pre-existing one by the looks of it. Yeah, we're overriding that one there. So, well, here's an easy way. Let's see, take damage. We're going to say the entire project and see where I've called that function. Because I swore we've already done this once and my brain is not wanting to... Okay, that's the override there. That's the one we're working on. Okay, here we go. Oh, okay. Right, that's it. So we're just passing in an F damage event, and that was what it was. We needed this header here to create that. To just be a new F damage event. Now, the next one is we need a controller for the event instigator and the damage causer. So we need a way to say who is the... I'm just going to do this for null pointer. This is just quickly so I can move on without it throwing a hissy fit at me. We need a way to know what those are. We do not want that to be this item, because if you hit somebody with a bat, a person doesn't think the bat hit them. They think you hit them. And that goes for everything. It's an extension of the person wielding the weapon. So we need a way to assign that information. So what we also want in here is we're going to add in class ATF character pointer owner. Then we're going to add in I'm trying to think how many functions. Just the one function. Void set owner. It's going to be ATF character pointer. I'm going to put lowercase owner in there just for the sake of case sensitivity. Character. That would be... Help me if I could spell. Alright. And this is a very basic one, and it's something that will be used towards the start of the item creation process when something's equipped. So it's going to be owner equals owner. So we've got this basic setup now. So up here in our damage event, we're going to just quite simply say owner get controller and pass over owner. The reason why we can use both of the, well, we can use this because it's getting the controller, which is what it needs. It's the A controller for the event instigator. And then the damage causer, we pass through the owner because everything when you follow it back in our hierarchy of classes is considered an A actor. So all of these ultimately will fall back down to A actor. They just can take some slightly different paths to get there. Like TF actor is a direct child of, but TF character is a child of character, which is a child of pawn, which is a child of a actor, or of actor. So now we hit 35 minutes, so I'm going to quickly go over the purpose of this. And again, this is going to extend into another episode. This is taking a little longer than I thought, but there's quite a few things to cover with this. So what we've done here is we have set up a generic collision event for assigning a overlap of like that to a, we have created a generic collision event that we can use to assign to the item should it have a melee functionality. Now, there's obviously a lot more we need to do, because right now, if we just assigned this to the weapon as the players walking through the world, they could just literally like walk into, while holding a bat, into something and cause some damage with it, and we don't want that. So that's some of the stuff we're going to address in the next episode. But as I said, we're hitting that 35-minute mark here, folks, so I'm going to end things off here. Thank you for watching, as always. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, please feel free to drop down into the comments below and leave them there, or you can hop over onto the Discord. I'm quite happy to answer any questions there, and I try to respond in general as fast as I can. Oh, yes, it's complaining because they're not initialized, but that's going to happen. But anyways, I'm going to end things here, folks, so thanks again, and I will see you in the next episode.